Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by 10th Man Rising, the Adam Meakin, Brian, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning. Well, that was quick.
I've got the habit down of waiting for the crazy chaos to end at the intro point of the show. Now, if you haven't tuned in last week on Flat Earth Debate, we've been covering a video which we've put more attention into than I'm going to say any other video we've responded to thus far. Because this Wired video with what I've dubbed the Wired Witch, this lady here, shows in depth how you are programmed throughout your education into a belief in the heliocentric model by way of disseminating how gravity is brainwashed into kids and then into young adults. So that's what we're going to be covering again today. This is, I believe, part 3. I think this is the third one we've covered on this. Normally we only do 2. This is the third, I believe. And we have covered them in other after shows as well, so it is a bit more extensive than it even sounds, being a part 3. But we will get into that. We'll pray out a couple of seconds of Chinese Thelma, as Adam did the last time, and then we'll move on to the next one, which we are, or at least I am, blind on what we'll be covering next. So we'll see how the outrage level goes. I'll keep you updated. In the meantime, is there any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No, there's none. There's not even any evidence for axial rotation to go along with that.
Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container for the gas to press upon?
That would be, according to the heliocentric model, gas taking the shape of no container.
Gases have no inherent shape. They're predominantly spaces between molecules bouncing off each other or the walls of a container. So they don't have any inherent shape. They take the shape of their containment. Gases, that is.
Not according to heliocentrism. According to heliocentrism, they take the shape of no container.
Yeah, I tried what Brian said. I went to a propane refilling station, and they said, where's your container? And I go, I'm a heliocentric. I don't need a container.
In case you're not picking up what they're putting down in the G+ panel, they're suggesting that begging the question assertion of atmosphere, that's atmo, air, like we're all breathing, that's gases, a mixture thereof. Sphere, a presupposition of a shape without containment. So an arbitrarily sphere-shaped air is what we are in the heliocentric world, assuming our gases are. That's atmosphere, sphere-shaped air. Hello, Arwin. Hello, Paul.
But yeah,
Hello,
there's no
Nathan.
evidence
Hello.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Hello.
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 Okay,
I
so
sound good.
yeah, we're doing good. We've got rid of a couple of housekeeping questions just to keep the general theme of housekeeping alive, even though we don't cover all of them every day anymore. But we're going to get into a bit of the Wired Witch like we did last week.
It really helps build my intuition.
Yeah, it does for me too. So thank you. So you're getting your PhD in physics.
That's right, theoretical high-energy physics. Basically the physics of really, really small fundamental things.
So what would that have to do with gravity or astrophysics?
Well, what I'm looking at is states of matter that might exist inside neutrons.
That might exist? If this is physics, why are we discussing things that might exist? In neutron stars, what, out in the sky vacuum? So very much not dealing with reality, this dude then. Astrophysicist,
But he-
aspiring. Go ahead, Darwin.
he's yeah, sorry, but I mean, you have to wonder like what is like inside of these atoms and beyond, right? It's not just astrophysics; it's also the internal world. Like they have to give you an answer like they know everything, right? Even if they are permanently unable to ever attain that information, they still feel like they have to speculate about knowing it and
I
then
see.
giving you a model, even if they can't prove it.
So
Ever.
if I come up with a theoretical model for the unicorn constellation in the heliocentric model, and then I suppose what the digestive tract of said unicorn constellation is, bearing in mind that the unicorn constellation, because it's mostly formed of gaps between lights in the sky, I'm going to say that it's a contained system, therefore unicorn, therefore has a digestive system. And I'm going to speculate about what the digestive tract contains in terms of life forms in the unicorn constellation. Because I need to have an answer for it. It doesn't matter that the entirety of the premise of the unicorn constellation and the heliocentric model it's based on is bunk. I've still got to have an explanation for how the digestive tract of my unicorn works, do I? No.
Yes.
Yeah, no, yes, you say. I say no. By example,
Well, some
you say
people
yes.
just
Go on, 10th.
some people just can't stomach this analogy that you're giving at this moment.
Neutron stars. So when a star dies, if the star is massive enough, there's a huge explosion called a
Massive enough. Massive would require the R value for your presupposition that Earth is a sphere, and Christian Huygens' assumption that Venus is the same spherical value as the assumed R value of Earth. So you can superimpose that assumption onto the light to then derive the scaling values through Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion to give you the distances and sizes of these lights. Now, the sizes also comes from an objection originally from Brahe, saying the scale of them would have to be enormous. Well, now they are enormous in the heliocentric model because the size wasn't relevant to tracking their timings for Easter in terms of when they'd appear. Now, further to that, the timings for the distances are based on the R value that A, can no longer be measured because we debunked it back in 2020 with the Black Swan, and B, is assumed to be the same as Venus in orbital motion in the heliocentric system. Actually just a light in the sky. That's assumed to have a spherical value as Earth when spherical. Yeah, none of these distances and size that this guy's going to babble on about when he talks about theoretical things in lights in the sky has any meaning whatsoever. You're being trained in nonsense. What a waste of money.
Yeah,
Can I give a rendition of, just I'll be quick then,
Go ahead,
of
Brian.
how they came up with the distance to the sun?
You can,
They
but
started
not
off-
after I do a couple of things. So hold that thought for 10 seconds while I tell people who are in the chat. Not that I'm suggesting you go away and do this while Brian's talking rather than me. Go away and do it now. Do it now. Share the show. And obviously go and let this wired woman, or wired as the videographer, YouTube channel, whatever you want to call him, know that Nathan Oakley 1980 channel sent me. Maybe leave a nice comment, but you can probably see now if I bring it up on screen so you can actually see this is the case. I would hope that she'd return the favour, or they, he, she, whatever they go by. Zara returns the favour by sharing my link if they do a response. Not that it's happened so far, but, you know, with enough time and enough iteration, or whatever the word is, that is the purpose of me sharing their show. You help them algorithmically. Hopefully they'll do the same for me in return, should they respond. But let them know Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. And, while Brian's hopefully still hanging on to that thought, share the show. So there's 50-odd people watching. It'd be great to get to 100 really quickly, and then I can encourage more people to share the show. So go ahead, Brian. Hopefully I haven't cut you off too much.
No. It's just there because it's connected to all their claims about the stars and the size of them and all the rest of it. It all starts with the sun. They took an average angular size of the sun, which is 0.5 degrees, and they claimed, just pulled it out of a hat, that Venus is the same size basically as the globe Earth, which means it has a radius close to 3959 miles. Now, this is all without any radius measurement or any measurement of anything of a globe. So it starts off with that globe pre-assumption. And then they determined via Venus's angular size when it's transiting the sun, how far away from the sun it was, to determine how far away their globe was from Venus, to determine how far away the globe was from the sun. See, that's how easy it is. They just start with the angular size of the sun, claim that the Earth is a globe, claim that Venus is the same size as that globe Earth, and compare the two angular sizes of the sun and Venus when Venus is transiting it through its claimed heliocentric orbit of the sun, and determine the distances from that. That's what they do, and it's the same. That's the starting point for everything to do with the stars, because the sun is a star in their model. So it all starts there and ends there. It starts and ends at the horizon. That's the truth, as we all know.
Supernova.
But as far as these distances, that's what they do.
And the stuff that's left behind that doesn't get blown away collapses into a tiny compact blob called a neutron star.
So
Show us.
Um,
Say again.
Sorry, but just to go back to the last point, you mentioned Brahe. A good sign of any genuine heliocentric underpinning statement is that the original discovering founding father absolutely abhors the underlying principles. So Newton, gravity, Brahe, and the ridiculous sizes that stars must be if they're that far away and are made up of the same stuff and constitute the same thing as the sun. Very important as you move forward in heliocentrism that you take a guy that makes a statement of logic and sense, that it's not likely that stars are suns millions of miles further away, because they'd have to be millions of times bigger. You take that statement, you build on it with hard quality bullshit. So instead of it being a point of objection, it becomes an underlying principle to your model.
Okay, let me just rephrase that to dumb it down. So Tycho Brahe looks at the logic based on this scale and says, this won't come across if it's in text, but in voice I can do it. Brahe says, well, they'd have to be absolutely enormous. Someone comes along and goes, now if I just rephrase that, change the tone a little, they would have to be enormous. Full stop. Right? See how just the tone of that exact same statement makes a real difference. In one, from Brahe, it's an objection. In the other, it's a statement of fact.
Exactly, because Brahe was a geocentrist. So there was no massive universe. Earth, even if he saw it as a globe or thought of it as a globe, was the center of whatever universe was there. But when they changed it to it being heliocentric as opposed to geocentric, then they could expand this universe out into this monstrous, never-ending vacuum that they have.
what I love about neutron stars personally is
Right, what you love about these lights in the sky that you've had no physical experience with whatsoever, and this guy is going to be going through his education system speculating about this light's potential physical properties in a heliocentric model that's been debunked. What you love about those, personally, is it what we're going to get into now, is it, love? Okay, let's see how this goes down.
is that they're kind of city-sized. Right?
That's right.
They're
It's-
about the size of a city.
She's got no idea how big a neutron star is or what a neutron star is. She's got a description of lights in the sky and a claim about what will happen to them in their life cycle as heliocentric gases in a sky vacuum, in an orbital motion, based on all of the above characters that we just went through and laughed about. So she hasn't got the slightest idea what this quote-unquote neutron star is. What we've got is a twinkling light. Literally, that is what we are describing. Quick shout out to Godzilla37, who is like the most prolific, if that's the correct pronunciation, super chatter there is on Flat Earth Debate. Much love to you, super chatter Godzilla37. For the super chat, he says, rather listen to FAD than drive to my first call. Good thing it's west of here. I'll just face my vehicle west, put it in neutral, listen to FED, and wait till it gets there. Also, hi. I assume that's a Coriolis reference. Nah, your wheels are attached to the non-inertial claim to be turning reference frame of a globe Earth. So it's only upon separation, i.e. if you're a flight travelling west, like Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles, that you'd have this effect that you're describing. Whereas if you're a ball attached to a roundabout, rolled as the roundabout turns, you're not detailing Coriolis effect, which is the globe Earth claim. But thank you all the same for the super chat, Godzilla37. Really appreciate the support.
Well, it wouldn't even happen because he drives a Jeep. He needs a Toyota Coriolis for that to happen.
A Toyota Coriolis. The car in front is a Coriolis.
So you're imagining something more than the mass of the sun.
Imagining, right? Why has he got physicist in the name that he's training towards? Astrophysicist. Surely that has something to do with the physical.
Yep, or about the mass of the sun condensed to the size of a city.
Is that really the case? As evidenced by what?
Dense enough that 1 teaspoonful would weigh about 1 billion tons. Here on.
Really? And if I challenge that with total speculation and complete made-up nonsense, that actually it weighs less, in spite of it being about the size of a city, it weighs less than a grain of sand. I mean, I just pull it out my ass, like you have. But who's to challenge it? I mean, my standard of saying it weighs less than a grain of sand, when I don't even know what the hell it is, it's just a twinkling light in the sky. Yeah, it holds absolutely no meaning whatsoever. None, in physical terms.
On Earth.
Now, that makes the gravitational field incredibly strong.
Gravitational field? Didn't we have a little video clip that Quantum Eraser dropped into Master B last time we did this? This is going to be another one of those times that I scroll and scroll and scroll and can't talk enough to fill the gap to make it seem like it's got good timing. Oh, come on. Where did he drop it? Maybe he dropped it somewhere else. Maybe he dropped it in...
It was on Friday he did it. He dropped it Friday in Master B.
Was it in Master B? Oh,
Yeah, pretty sure it was Master B, yeah.
I want to get it in.
That spoon that weighs how many pounds? It's amazing makeup stuff, man.
Morning, guys. According to the general theory of relativity, gravity is not a force. There are no gravitational fields.
Sorry, what was it you were saying, Love, about gravitational fields?
That's
right, around the neutron star. So what would happen if we were on a neutron star because of the gravity? That makes the gravitational field incredibly strong.
Gravity is kind of an illusion.
Yeah? An illusion? Not a field? Yeah, exactly.
That's
right, around the neutron star. So what
against each other. So it sounds like they need to have a debate against each other to figure out whether gravitational fields actually exist or not.
Well, they kind of, if you compare this to the previous interviews, or not interviews, but the other students, she's coming in and helping him, and he's missing things that she's filling in, telling you that she knew all this stuff. Of course, it's all made up beforehand when she had the younger students, and said the opposite. Just listen to how they have this little dance. They have a cadence going. They just have to say one word. The other person already has 1,000 chapters of that book in their head.
Right, please share the show. 75 people watching. Smash that share button. Let's get it to 100. Go on, Brian.
What she's doing is shopping and changing between what she would call Newtonian and Einsteinian relativity, because she's talking about things within the heliocentric model that requires general relativity. But then she's talking about the mass, whatever the hell that is, of the star, right, creating a tremendous gravitational field, because mass equals, you know what I mean, gravitation, right? A force of gravity. So she's chopping and changing between out of date, 108 years out of date, a force of gravity, and Einsteinian relativity, which they need for these crazy claims. That's why Einstein's relativity was accepted, and what they would call Newtonian force of attraction, gravity, was thrown out the window, because it didn't work for what they needed to do. They couldn't keep expanding their universe with it. So she's talking about something that requires relativity and trying to add in something that had to get thrown out the window for relativity to even come in.
Right, they're in totally different geometries, but she's got to convolute them, and this is at the tail end of her convolution, though. At the end of this process, she'll be on pure Einsteinian, I'm in no doubt. Retro Bill from the Super Chat says, loving this trilogy in terms of the Wired Witch. Yeah, definitely. It's something that I'm hoping to get through. That's why maybe I should just come clean. And the reason I want you to share the show is because I'd like to stay live a little bit longer and get this, bash this out of the park, because we're only about halfway through. Well, a bit further on, but hopefully we'll get it through. And if there's more people watching, I'm more inclined to stay on track doing it. So hopefully you'll all share the show and we'll get well into 100, 120 people watching.
What would happen if we were on a neutron star?
Oh, right. What? Something that's intensely gravitationally intense, right? And intensely dense and all of the things notwithstanding about your gravitational paradigm that you brainwashed this guy and all the previous kids with. I mean, this is the reason I've got to preface that is because essentially this will be the death cell again, won't it?
Because
we would immediately be crushed into the ground.
So dead. Yeah. So like I've said on the last 3 examples, she uses the death cell repeatedly. I say she's just utilizing the tricks and tools of the trade when it comes to heliocentrism. So I won't say it's particularly her. Heliocentrism utilizes the death cell. In this example, it immediately starts with him being dead, doesn't it? It's just described, hypothetically, him being stood somewhere that would kill him. I'm sure he's going to smile while he says it. Fear.
I think our bodies would be shred into their subatomic.
Shredded into subatomic. Yeah, while he's smiling. Yeah, grimace.
Particles.
Nathan,
So,
Nathan, what's so funny here is that gravity's now the force, but over there it's going to shred you.
But isn't it funny though that I like how you call it the death cell, right? The death cell requires everything that they want. That like they love this place that they call outer space, right? They love it, but everything in this place that doesn't actually exist will kill them. It's the most ridiculous environment known to man, but they just want to be out there hanging out. That's insanity.
what's the connection between neutron stars and black holes?
So as I understand it, a black hole is sort of like a neutron star's big brother. It's more intense. If you have so much matter when a star is collapsing that it can't hold itself up, it collapses to a black hole. And those are so dense that space-time breaks down.
Wait, what breaks down? A fourth dimension described by Einstein as pseudo. That breaks down. A pseudo-dimension breaks down. All right, not to worry. You know, that's not going to affect us in any physical way. Pseudo-dimensions don't affect me. Pseudo-geometry, pseudo-Einsteinian geometry, pseudo-Riemannian four-space geometry invented by Einstein, space-time breaking down. Go on.
So, Nathan, he's saying a concept is breaking down.
Yes.
The illusion of gravity is breaking down. That's what he's actually saying.
No. The reified force of gravity within a neutron star and the amount of pressure and density. What a coincidence. That's created. More intense than the teaspoon of immense weight that he described when he said that the neutron star, comparatively to other stars that have gone through their death rows and have now concluded that process with this super dense neutron star, right? Light in the sky. Yeah. By comparison, gravity's like that on acid. It's like that times 20. So it's much, much, much more dense to the point where the concept of pseudo-Riemannian four space-time invented by Einstein starts collapsing. But that's still an effect that he's going to be describing within the mathematics, if he's going to be describing it accurately, of a fourth dimension. Described as though it's in a physical reality. So he's going to be describing that as opposed to the reality of the pseudo-dimension collapsing. That isn't what he's describing. Just to be clear.
So he's saying there's going to be a mathematical disaster, basically, is what he's saying.
In the fourth dimension, yes.
Yeah, when a description being space and a concept being time, like collapse, you know.
A mathematical disaster is that when your piece of paper starts exploding and shit.
Yeah. You put a 2 in instead of a 4 and it all goes wrong.
Let's find out.
In some way or another.
Black holes are so amazing that where the neutron star stops and there's something actually there, right? There's a material there. If it's so heavy, it becomes a black hole, so it keeps falling.
Sorry, wasn't a neutron star in her description just super dense material anyway?
Once the event horizon of the black hole forms, which is the shadow, the curve that's so strong that not even light can escape, the material keeps falling. And like you said, maybe space-time breaks down right at the center.
Escape? Like what? Like light's got a journey? See, that's wrong. So all of this has been debunked by quantum mechanics, hasn't it? All these descriptions of how light can't escape from the event horizon. Yeah, that's all nonsense. It's all debunked.
there, but whatever
Yeah,
happens,
she's breathing. You want to go, Brian, or?
No, thank you.
Okay, no, she's breathing life into something that no one's experienced. It's not even empirical, by the obvious reason. No one's been there. She's saying, isn't that amazing when this happened? Amazing what? What did you experience? It's all calculations and mathematical disasters you're explaining here. They already got us in the begging the question out there in their heliocentric model, and everyone's saying, wow, look at, she just mentioned that. I didn't know that. Oh, black hole and this, and a spoon that weighs this much. So people who don't have critical thinking are already there. So now they can say anything they want because it actually exists.
Yeah, well, I mean, she can't talk about something having a load of mass and it having a really intense gravitational field and then speak about a two-way speed of light calculation, as they're two different things. One is limited to the two-way speed of light calculation, which is 671,870,000 or something miles an hour, and the other is instantaneous action at a distance. So it's so convoluted.
Yeah, but the biggest problem we got here is before you talk about two-way speed of light, black holes, all this stuff, can you just show us R here on terra firma? Just show us a physical geometric horizon where it's supposed to be. Can you just do that first?
the star's gone. That black hole is empty. So in a weird way, black holes are a place and not a thing.
So is there a sensible way to talk about what's inside a black hole, or is that, should you think of it as there is no space-time inside?
There isn't a sensible way to talk about it yet, and that probably...
So why are we describing how sensible we will be when detailing something? It's just ridiculous language that's being used, and his question is about, fairly plainly, whether or not space-time exists at the point of collapse of a black hole. That was his question. Now, what I would answer him with is no, because what you're describing is a bent geodesic for a light particle to be trapped by at the edge of an event horizon where the fourth dimension bends, because that's the point where you've got this super dense material turning into a black hole, warping the invented pseudo fourth dimension by Einstein. So when we talk about gravity wells and all of these things, we're talking about bent geodesics in space-time. Now, we might on the next level get to the point where we're talking about various parts of the fourth dimension bending back on themselves and black holes linking between to give us wormholes. All sorts of crazy nonsense notions that have come from a brief history and time further down the line. I mean, I don't know if we'll go beyond Einstein, but these are the kind of places that these bent geodesics in a fourth dimension lead to, and leave you with a guy like this asking questions about places that aren't real, and her questioning the validity of how sensible it is to discuss them, not how physically real they are.
But Nathan, is it sensible to talk about the type of shoes the kids were wearing where they went through the wardrobe to get to Narnia? Let's talk about the type of shoes they were wearing. Isn't that sensible?
Oh, it's not sensible to talk about the time dilation processes that go on when you traverse through wardrobe to Narnia. I mean, it's not even sensible to contemplate those things. I mean, notwithstanding the fact that we are both under the definite realisation and understanding that we can traverse wardrobes to get to Narnia. Right, Chocolate?
But of course.
Of course. Oh, so long as we're all understanding that. I mean, it's not. We can discuss the whys and wherefores of how sensible it is to discuss the time dilation that you experience when traversing wardrobes. I mean, that sort of thing isn't even for us to really discuss. I mean, not to mention how complicated the maths is. But next time we're in Narnia, we can ponder these things together, Chocolate.
Yes,
well, we shall. Sorry, Chocolate. We're going to need fifth dimension pseudo-Albanian maths for that.
The pseudo-Albanian maths is something that was developed by Friedrich, at least 116 years ago. I mean, that's very well-established mathematics.
And just so people know, I know that fourth dimension is not Romanian maths. I know that. It's Romanian, not Romanian.
That's my Brummy accent. That's got nothing to do with its actual validity as a. We're talking about the name of a geometry. Romanian, I don't care how it's said. Yeah, I've probably got adenoids. It doesn't matter. We're just labelling a geometry, right? Fourth dimensional geometry, pseudo-Riemannian, however the hell it's pronounced. But it's not Euclidean 3 space, is it? Right, what you'd need for mass attracting mass. You can't even calculate for that in fourth dimensional space-time anyway. Right, it's just absurd.
Riemannian, just let us alone.
Riemannian, I think it is. I say Romanian. It's Riemannian.
Means that's where Einstein's theory of gravity as a curved spacetime is beginning.
Not a theory, not a scientific theory, has no scientific validation, has no empiricism, has no cause and effect reasoning. It's an invented pseudo-geometry.
Beginning to break down.
Break down? What, so we're going to go on to how Einstein's mathematics and field equations don't work? I doubt it.
And we need to take the extra step of going to some kind of quantum theory of gravity.
Oh, quantum? Shouldn't you explain what quantum mechanics is before going to a quantum theory of gravity? Because in reality, quantum mechanics debunked all this crap from Einstein. We just pointed it out 25 seconds ago.
Just on the quantum theory bit, this is stolen valor again, isn't it?
Yep.
I think a few weeks ago, we're looking at this and we're trying, quantum gravity, lovely, what is that? And we go and we research it and we basically, you get the admission, it's a pathetic attempt to fudge things together that can't be fudged together. And at best, it's not an agreed on even what quantum gravity would be within the community, because fundamentally, we're using the word quantum and the empiricism and scientific information it provides when we think about quantum mechanics, and they're taking the quantum from there and the gravity from the other waffle, and they're trying to put the two together as if it means something. And that's the point I want to make. What she's just said there, if she was honest, would be saying, well, after saying quantum gravity, and say, and fundamentally, that means nothing. It means one thing to one physicist, one thing to another. And if I'm being super honest, that gravity and quantum mechanics are not able to be fused together to give some overreaching theory. It's a lie, and it's an attempt to rescue both Newtonian and Einsteinian gravity models.
Correct.
That's quantum field theory you're talking about, Adam, isn't it?
Well, yeah,
Where they have Newtonian, Einsteinian, and quantum mechanics all mixed into the one. Three things that definitely cannot mix. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas quantum gravity is gravitons that are massless particles that move through the universe instantaneously. So you can't detect them, you can't see them, but they're there and they go around everywhere really, really fast.
Okay, just so we can summarize where we've got from and where we are at now. We've gone from gravity being a force that holds you to the ground, that you can measure how strong it is, to gravity not being a force of down holding you to the ground, but a force of you falling in an elevator and not realizing that you're falling, to gravity being light, not being able to escape from the edge of something called an event horizon, at a point where pseudo-Riemannian four space-time dimensions have bent because of the huge mass of something bigger than or more mass than a neutron star. So now we can summarize, at least at this point, what the Einsteinian assertion is, because that is, in essence, what she's just declared. So as a cause and effect supposition based on the pseudo-Riemannian four-space dimension that we don't live in, you have the supposition that the uneven distribution of mass will cause the bending of space-time. Now, the bending of space-time would be the fourth dimension bending when he said, at the point of this mass going in beyond the event horizon, is there any space-time at all? Well, no, because the space-time is the thing being dimensionally bent and warped in order to describe this effect. The effect, in quotes, being gravity. So we've gone from gravity being a force in a three-dimensional worldview of something falsely ascribed to a man called Newton after he objected to how stupid and ludicrous it would be to make this assertion. So they named it after him, Newtonian gravity. That's what's being indoctrinated to the children at the beginning of this process. Now we're at the mid-stage, moving on to the actually debunking, but now hodgepodge slapped onto the end of the claim that the uneven distribution of mass causes gravity, which is the bending of space-time invented by Einstein. So it seems there is more as they go through what we're going to get to next, quantum foam. We'll see, because we're not at the end yet, that's for sure.
We don't have that yet. So even though the black hole is...
Also, please share the show. 88 people watching. It's pretty good, but not great. So, yeah, if you've just joined us, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully you've clicked on a link that someone else has shared. Unless you've looked us up because you were happening to find your way through the funeral services, which I'm now listed in, rather than Flat Earth. I mean, obviously, being at the bottom of funeral services listings is just as terrible as being at the bottom of Flat Earth listings. But nevertheless, you may not have come by looking for, a way to bury a loved one, or because you're a particular member of a particular evangelical church, which I'm also at the bottom of the list of them as well. But nevertheless, if you have found your way here because a Flat Earth friend has actually shared the show, then I thank you and welcome. But if you haven't already smashed the share button, please do so. And let this lady know at Wired. Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me with a nice comment that won't get removed.
Isn't completely understood. We do know that they form astronomically, that in the universe, things like neutron stars form and things like black holes form. The consequence...
No, you don't know that. That's a baseless assertion. You don't know that. You have devised these descriptions of the things that you have scaled with Kepler and Huygens, and then you just arbitrarily, after ascribing them with those values, declare them as knowing that you know that's the case. Absolutely not.
Consequences are very much speaking to this curved space-time. So, for instance...
Speaking to a fourth-dimensional pseudo-reality we don't live in. They're all speaking to that, are they? Yeah, we know. It's just nonsense. We don't live in a fourth dimension.
Of two black holes that orbit each other. They're like mallets on a drum, and they actually cause space-time to ring. And it's very much part of gravitation.
What? The fourth dimension now makes sound? Ugh. We're so far off into La-La Land at this point in Einstein's nonsense. Obviously they needed a changing of the guard, and it was forced upon them by cause and effect reasoning with quantum that they are now hijacking. But this is where the La-La Land of Einstein ends up.
The ringing of space-time itself.
Ringing of a fourth-dimensional space-time that we don't inhabit. My God.
We call gravitational waves.
Oh, really? As they permeate the Earth as a sphere in an orbit that's been scaled by Kepler? Definitely not. We've debunked all of this. You'll need a geometric horizon. You'll need an R value. You'll need something better than a Huygens assumption that Venus has got the same value. And then an application of the Kepler's third law that is definitely not in application. You're only trying to use that to figure out when Easter is, as opposed to taking on board an objection from, it wasn't Kepler, we said it earlier, who was the guy who objected about their size? Brahe. You've got it, Brahe. Taking an objection from Brahe and then giving these massive sizes to then infer that later down the line, when you move on from 3D to 4D, that you've got a space-time being bent by the uneven distribution of mass, and that geodesic carries with it, as a wave, a sound that permeates the Earth as a sphere. This is the biggest string of nonsense ever. We live in a weird world where, when broken down, the religious worldviews of your average Joe Globe believer are pretty extreme. I mean, this is some pretty kooky nonsense. Would you not all agree? 4D space-time with sound waves in it.
It's crazy because she's actually trying to say that that gravitational waves are being created and they have a resonance. But really what she's saying is mathematics with sound. That's what our actual claim is, isn't it, if we think about it?
But the propagation of sound through a three-dimensional box can be defined, measured, shown, reified into graphs, depicted in all sorts of different ways. The science of how sound is measured, I say science, the mathematics of how sound is measured, right, is something that's been pegged for a very, very long time, right? Like a couple of 100 years, people have understood this stuff, been getting to grips with it. But in the last 100 years, it's all understood, right? But it all takes place in a 3D world. So when you talk about adding on an extra dimension that we cannot experience in any way, shape or form, see, measure, none of it, because it's a time dimension. Well, when you talk about qualifying sound, you're talking about, in terms of how you measure it and write it down, the numbers of oscillations over a period. The period is time. So when she talks about time as a fabric and a dimension, then oscillating, it's like, how do you qualify the sound wave when reified into a graph when you've got a period that you've got to justify, and the periods become a fabric It's like, this makes no mathematical sense to me when it's broken down like this. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've heard these principles before, but I've not heard them disseminated in the way that she's just disseminated them in terms of what a gravitational wave is. Now, even in the name, I had a reasonable understanding of what that meant. But I've just never heard it disseminated in the way she has. Now, I'm not denying that that's how they, I'm not saying true, how they disseminate it, or it's accurate within the heliocentric model. But it's such a nonsensical convention, because you've got something that requires a period in sound and something that's taken the period, put it into a dimension, and then said that that itself oscillates. This is fucking not. Sorry, I have to stop getting. I'm getting annoyed.
Well,
Something near and dear to my heart when it comes to sound.
Nathan, Brian's point, this only exists in the math. So they got a mathematical disaster on their hand. So what they do is they do some more equations and say, we solved the problem of the black hole and the neutron because we got the right math now. So everything about it only exists in the math. And that's what Brian's trying to say. It's not reality. It's not empirical. It's all made up.
Well, so far she's claimed maths can be a disaster, can create a disaster, and that maths has a sound. Like, can someone tell me what is the sound of time? You know what I mean?
It's a convoluted question. That's why it frustrates me, because when you say what is the sound of time, it's like, well, no. When you measure the sound of something in a frequency, you're measuring it against time. That's one of the things you'll plot on the graph. So if you've already got it plotted in terms of the time versus a duration, how many waves in that period, how do you then transpose that into a fabric? And the answer is you can't.
It's crazy. I mean, space is a description of 3 dimensions. It's a description. That's all it is. The word space. It's the way it describes. Time is a concept. None of them have sound. None of them.
Yeah.
And this was something Einstein thought about right away in 1915, 1916. He was thinking about that.
Those waves are very exciting for me too, because neutron stars orbiting each other also give off gravitational waves, and we might be able to get some data about neutron star material.
Steve, what?
Say again, Adam.
Data?
It's phone.
I didn't know what you said, Adam. Okie dokie then. We'll move on.
From that kind of signal.
Yes, they ring space-time also like a drum, and you can record the sound of that ringing after 1 billion years when it's trapped.
It can record the sound.
Who's got a recorder for 1 billion?
It's a space-time
How are you
recorder.
going to validate that?
Nope, space-time is storing the waves.
So we've got a special methodology of sound that is due to the vibration of a 4th dimension, and we've also got something to record. So we've got a 4th dimensional vibrational recorder, unless of course it just makes a normal sound. But how would a 4th dimension make normal sound and cause air molecules to vibrate? So this is bunkum. It's starting to sound right. It's reminding me that the only way to win this thing is the O.J. Simpson trial method, which is just to go to kind of that special pleading that, did you not know that Chewbacca is a Wookiee? Yeah? You keep talking about that and that and that in such a nonsense way that you forget what the actual original claim is. Because she started this off ringing a bell of space-time. And they're going to do that to understand what a neutron star is. When they've already not proven what a neutron star is, they've already decided that that special type of light in the sky is a neutron star. Like I say, it just all smells of just total special pleading now, to the point.
Adam,
Yeah.
she said it takes 1 billion years to record. That's because the speed of that sound, it takes that much time for it to reach our ears. I'm assuming that's what she means. Because
no, that's not what she means. It isn't.
No, what she mean?
Well, she doesn't, because that's talking about air propagating through the sound, moving the air molecules so it propagates to your ears. Well, that's very much a 3-dimensional concept plotted against a duration. Well, you can plot that on a two-dimensional graph with a line and a wave. Okay, fine. Well, how are you going to then describe that as the ringing of the dimension of time? You square that circle for me before you say that that's what she's saying, because she isn't. When you describe how
No, what my
sound
point,
actually works.
My point, Nathan, was she's already giving it a name, it's a ringing. But if it takes 1 billion years to actually hear the ringing, how did she know to call it a ringing?
Oh, I see. Yeah, she's taken it into La La Land so far into the future in terms of the fourth dimensional sound recorder that she's just literally said. It's a bloody outrage. It really is.
Well, no, let me sum it up. Back in the 80s, she had one of those recorders. You know, you put the tape in, you press play and record, one of those little things, and she ran out of tape. Now she just needs a big enough hard drive. But she's got a problem, because in 1 billion years, right, when they have what they need to record this sound, they won't hear it, because it's all happening in a vacuum.
I'm going to go on off a little segue after reading these super chats. Whoever that was, go ahead, and then I'm going to go on a slight segue.
I was just going to say, oh dear.
Shout out to Mike, who says, this is the best channel on YouTube. Keep it up. Oh, I really appreciate it, Mike. Thank you very much indeed. I'd be nothing without the panel. Shout out to Godzilla, most prolific YouTube FED super chatter. In 1 billion years, planet Zorton will hear FED for the first time. Shout out to Chocolate. Zortians haven't heard from him yet. Thank you very much for the super chat. And it's reminiscent of Thetans and Scientology, a heliocentric religion, because a lot of what Godzilla wove into that super chat was heliocentric. Almost 100 people watching. Woo-hoo-hoo! Very much indeed for the super chat. Really appreciate the support. Okay, so just a side note in terms of something that's happened that I didn't expect to happen. One of the fans of the show, let's just say, to keep it vague, got in touch with me because they liked the sound of how I sounded on the show. And originally they were asking me about how to make their sound work, and I misinterpreted that to mean that they needed help with their audio chain, like how to gain stage or something like that. And this is something that I studied at college, lost interest in when I went into retail and did a whole load of boring jobs. And then obviously got back into when I started doing YouTube in a big way when I started acoustically treating this room. Now, it transpired that that person was actually asking me for help on how to acoustically treat their room. And they said, look, I'll pay you. And just by however it worked out, this person just dropped money on me for me to spend, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 hours tops and a conversation to explain how acoustics worked in a way that they could take their room from being a relatively good room by dimensions and turn it into a very good room for a recording space, for broadcast recording. And at the end of the process, I tell you what, it was like hoovering up a line of cocaine or something. It was like the most amazing thing. I was like, I've just been paid to tell someone about something that I've, off my own back, spent, how long have I been acoustically treating this room? 3 years? 2.5 years? So in that entire time, I've been looking at acoustics the entire time, like almost daily, watching acoustics video, researching. I did it today. It's just something I'm interested in. So you just do it and you just find yourself in a routine of looking up stuff about acoustics. So just to convey that to somebody and then give me money for it was I said it to him afterwards. I was like, that was better than sex. That was just amazing. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you as we're talking about sound, and there's never been a segue that I can weave it into the show.
Well, it's good because you realise that how much you've learned. You've learned so much that you're actually able to actually advise someone else on how to do it for themselves. You know, good.
Exactly. Really. I was chuffed that I could ask a few key questions. What are the dimensions of your room? What are you planning on doing with it? Just a few key things, and then disseminate the importance of covering all of it in the softest possible way, and then point them in the direction of a retailer to buy stuff from. And at the end of the process, they're like, I've ordered it now. I was like, great. Start sticking it up on your walls. Come back to me when you've finished putting them up, and then buy more until you've run out of space. And that's it. Easy. But just, I don't know, it's just very, very good. And I just wanted to segue onto it just because we're talking about sound, but we will get back onto the Wired Witch now. I've managed to share that just because it's something good. It's not often that I'm able to share with my audience, look, I've actually managed to do something off my own back that's earned me money rather than e-begging constantly. So I just thought that success was worth sharing with the audience. Anyway.
traveled through the universe. But then the next thing that happens is those neutron stars collide. And because of this incredibly high energy state of matter, which you study, it becomes this firework of different explosions. It's really...
Explosions? So something physically exploding? No, these are lights in the sky. Yeah, back to, this is lights in the sky. So twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. You're a neutron star with vast amounts of energy colliding to create a black hole with an event horizon. Up above the star so high. Go on.
Just saying, I think this is what John's been talking about. John Shelton's been talking about when he's talking about high energy, short distance problems.
Right.
really quite spectacular.
That's right. In fact,
yes, as you look at them through a telescope, which is all you've got.
In fact, when we recorded that for the first time with gravitational waves, we then...
You recorded it with gravitational waves? Let me get it straight. You showed fourth-dimensional space-time bending? No, you didn't. I absolutely assure you.
Pointed telescopes at it.
Oh, you pointed telescopes at it and then came up with a story about gravitational waves. I see. So what you actually did, and I called it, was pointing a freaking telescope at it. That's what you actually did. You looked at lights in the sky. Comprende? That's what you actually did. Did you physically vary and manipulate anything? No. Did you establish the cause of the effect through suppositional reasoning based on an experiment? No. Did you do any science? No. What did you do? Well, what we just did 10 minutes ago when we babbled total nonsense about what the lights we looked at were. We had no validity, just a lot of stories that we nodded along as we told each other about and confirmed our religious faith in. That's all that actually happened. Quick shout out to JMels24. Really appreciate the super chat. In the words of the all-time greats Brenda and Rumpus, you'll just don't understand. 4 more hours. Smiley face.
Nathan,
thank you for the super chat.
You had a telescope in the past and you used it. Did you record anything with it?
I recorded the lunar eclipse when it went red. That's about it.
Recording to hear the sound, the ringing.
yeah. That's a good one. That is exactly like that. It's like saying he's just described seeing gravitational waves when detailing a light show that he saw in his telescope. That's what he's just detailed, right? Now, take what she said a minute ago about what gravitational waves do and how they ring. So what they're saying is your telescope, yeah, it's not for looking at stuff, yeah. When you use your eyeballs, you're hearing the gravitational wave with your eyes. That's what they're saying. It is absolute heliocentrism is barking nuts. That's the bottom line here, people. It's bonkers. When Chocolate on the last couple of shows like these people are on crack. Yeah, it's a bonkers religion. You're all nuts. Please share the show.
So true.
And we're able to see it optically as well. And that...
Oh, see it? Weren't you hearing it? Weren't you hearing the fourth dimension? Like ringing and shit. Let's just calm down a little bit. Let's take a breath. They're just nutters, they're not me.
They observe.
Go on.
Just saying, they observe the gravitational waves with their ears.
They
Well, they could be referring
optically
to radio telescopes.
No, these aren't radio telescopes they're talking about. I almost dropped that in there in case anybody inferred it, but I'm glad you have.
That gave scientists a lot of data.
Yeah, it was, to my knowledge, the most widely studied astronomical event in the history of humanity.
So it was very widely looked at.
Wow.
So when
amazing.
the gravitational waves were recorded...
Sorry, what gravitational waves? Right, this is it. I see. No, you didn't know that this was the unicorn constellation. My love, we've been studying the digestive tract of this stuff. It wasn't explosions. It was digestion. Didn't you know? What's that? My bullshit story I made up on the spot after looking at lights in the sky doesn't fly because you've got Einstein, Newton, Huygens and Kepler. Yeah, obviously, though, those heavy hitters make this gravitationally bending. No, love, no. Fourth dimensions aren't what we're seeing here. I am not seeing a fourth dimension here. Nobody is.
What did you call it, Nathan? What is it you saw?
The unicorn constellation. This is the digestive tract. Obviously.
So it could So maybe it's not Einsteinian, but intestinian.
It is intestinian.
And they realized, oh, this sounds like you can reconstruct the shape and size of the mallets of the drum from the sound.
Do I need to say anything? You're all bonkers. You're all bonkers. What else do you want me to say? This is a witch nutter telling you that you're hearing the sky when looking at it because it's a drum. I mean, this is absolutely insane.
I mean, it all makes sense if you just listen with your eyes, man. Come on, what are you doing?
It reminds me of Monty Python movie, The Holy Grail, where they said if someone weighs more than a trout, then they're a witch. Even that makes more sense than what they're saying.
That checks out.
No, if she's made of... No, if she weighs the same as a duck... No. Why do you want to burn her? Because she's a witch. Well, how do you know she's a witch? Well, she's got a pointy nose. Okay, well, no, there's ways of figuring out if she's a witch. What else do we burn? Well, we burn wood. Okay. Well, what does wood also do? Float. Okay, what else floats? A duck. Okay, so logically, if she weighs the same as a duck, then she's made of wood. And therefore... a witch! Burn her!
That's literally globe logic.
These sounds like neutron stars colliding, not black holes. And so, like you said, there was a trigger for satellites and experiments all over the world.
Satellites and experiments for the sounds of neutron stars versus black holes. What was the key?
Phenomenon?
What chord is it? Is it a chord? What's the note?
B minus. A B minor.
And
No,
you can see that, can you? That's what you'd see. D minor.
Yeah, you'd see B minor.
B. All right. You'd see that when you look through your telescope. Gotcha.
To point roughly in the direction that the sound was coming from. So from your...
What the... I don't even need to say anything, do I?
point of view, I mean, they're like two superconducting giant magnets colliding. And
what do they sound like? They sound like an orchestra.
Experiment you could never do on
Not an experiment. You have never done an experiment. You don't even know what it is.
Earth.
I don't think it's too kind to be mocking them.
But they've never collided two supermagnets before?
Yes, it sounded amazing.
Most tremendous scales and peculiarities of matter.
Scales? La 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 la. Yeah, is that what it is, yeah?
Absolutely. I've heard statistics
I bet
like
that
many.
Nathan, I bet that with the scaling up, they didn't actually then test whether the scaled up version was actually the real thing that happens. I bet they're just asserting it.
No, I'm pretty sure they scaled down fourth dimensional space-time, Owen, and they've tested this thoroughly.
Sure they have.
If you look at the serious nature of their faces as they're talking, they actually believe all this stuff.
Right, I've got about a couple of minutes left, but just hovering around 100 people. I didn't do any more shout-outs. So I know if we can get that over 100, we might stay alive a little bit longer, but it looks like we're going to be rounding out shortly unless we don't. Or unless we do get over 100. Then we will stay alive a little bit longer.
What, is everybody sleeping today?
I don't know. We've had another layer of censorship slapped on top of us, and people keep telling me, they keep sending me messages and showing me screenshots with examples when they're searching for me. So basically, for whatever reason, we are more threatening than we thought we were, and need an extra layer of censorship. So some of it amusing, when people literally show, look, you show up amongst funeral home videos. Okay, right. Thanks for sharing.
Crazy.
Okay, but
I mean that checks out. We are having a funeral for the globe, so that checks out.
But it's you can stop telling me, by the way, people sending me these messages and emails. Okay, thank you. I got the point. I picked up on it almost straight away when it started happening because it's not vanity, but I do shirts search certain key things like my own name, like the show title, like specific titles of specific shows, old show numbers, things like that. I'll do them periodically and regularly to see what the state of play is for someone doing a search. And yeah, I'll do all the usual things and sign out and all the rest of it, and do it in my own name and do it in channels that are signed on that are different, that are doing different searches. So I do various different things to get the idea. I spot it, and generally just because I spot it so often, go, oh, and just that's about it. That's about as much as it does. At least I'm aware. But in this instance, over the last, I don't know how long, recently, people have been telling me about it a lot and showing me examples of it a lot. I'm like, okay, should I praise the fact that, you know, we're obviously right over the target because we're getting more flack? Or do I just e-beg more because that's going to send my numbers downwards, which is obviously the case. You know, we've still got 100 people watching, which is good. But, you know, gone are the days of us ever seeing 300 people watching, like when I was a nobody and had no subject understanding and was producing terrible videos with a terrible mic. You know, those were the days that they would promote you because you were an idiot, or I was an idiot back then. So worthy of promoting within the subject of flat earth because I was a numpty idiot and therefore was only going to do harm to the notion of a flat earth and prop up the notion of heliocentrism when defeated with poor arguments. But back then, I got 300 people watching, 300 plus at the peak. Now, like I say, we're appearing in less and less lists and being put to the bottoms of crappier lists, which is it's the way it is for a flat earther, I suppose.
It doesn't matter because they cannot stop the truth. We keep pushing forward.
I don't even see a problem with the funeral homes at all because the plot line thickens every time a show comes on.
But in funeral homes, you say, is that by any chance a funeral home for Globers?
That's a grave site.
It's funeral services and churches. It's just at the end of religious lists, and you know, funerals is part of that. But yes, anyway, I should be more rejoiceful because the fact that we can maintain 100 people watching the current numbers, basically, literally as we speak, is because people share the show. That's the only reason. No one's just going to find their way to this show. The only reason there's 100 people watching is because everyone who's smashed the share button and gone, you know, I agree when Nathan essentially e-begs for shares, which is what I'm doing, because it keeps the numbers higher. And the show's worthy of getting good numbers in front of it. Even if I do say so myself, I'm not ashamed to say it. This is a good show. Anyway, we'll do a little bit longer just because we have got 100 people watching. I am very grateful to all of you who shared.
Earth masses worth of gold were created, forged in the neutron star collision that caused that. We used to think that most elements in the universe were created in supernova, which is when stars explode because there's so much violent activity at the center that you need that kind of energy to create new elements.
So he's about to throw under the bus the old and busted ways of describing elements being formed in the heart of dying stars. Therefore, rocks are your cousins. So I'll be intrigued to see where he goes after this statement of propping up the ideas being wrong, because he's about to describe it with neutron stars rather than supernova. Let's just see where it goes with this.
The way you do in a bomb, it's basically nuclear fusion.
Sure, but we now think that that kind of fusion happens when two neutron stars collide. If you think,
oh, I see. So the origin stories of how we all became rock cousins has fundamentally changed. You know what? It's amazing how you can just change this premise of how we came to be. Now, my understanding from old and dusty, out-of-date heliocentric rhetoric was that everything coursing through my veins came from the heart of supernova, dying stars. But now what? I'm just going to flip the script, just make up a different story? No, it's more beneficial to describe it this way in a world that isn't real, out where the lights in the skies are massive, vast distances. Shout out to Mario Knows It's God. Says, what's one of your favourite shows by number? All of them. They're all excellent. There are no exceptions. But thank you for asking. What's the show number today? What my favourite show as of today is today's show. Please share it. Thank you for the super chat.
think about it, you have two massive blobs of neutrons. When you smush them together, you've got neutrons colliding. It creates the conditions where new elements can be created.
All right. And what conditions would those be? Have you demonstrated the conditions upon smashing two neutron stars together? Enter the Hadron Collider, right? Start smashing things into each other, quick, sharp, at great speeds.
Yeah, by the way, Nathan, My
Yes.
favorite show from yours is 1001 because it lasted like 3 or like 20 seconds and then you rounded it out.
Well, that's an
And I looped it for 4 hours. Remember?
no.
It's on our Winning Bear channel, one of the early uploads.
I vaguely remember me starting, having an immediate issue, and then just rounding out immediately, and then YouTube
Exactly.
taking that and rounding and doing it for like a 3-hour video of that non-stop.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Nathan,
Well,
did I just hear the guy say?
1001.
Did I just hear the guy say? And I'll summarize: conditions, then collisions, then us.
yeah, he's describing the presumably the actual story of the formation through nuclear fusion, as she just described, hasn't changed. It's just instead of it happening in supernova, as the elements become heavier and heavier and heavier and get formed, so you end up with gold and platinum and so on at the end of the process, which then at the last dying seconds before the neutron star is formed, it all explodes outwards. So it's all been imploding, forming ever more dense elements, to then explode to deposit all of these materials out throughout the known universe. And obviously, as that process happens through their descriptions of millions of years, lots of heavier elements that will be crucial to form life get made, for them to, over billions of years, come together on whatever rock that will eventually have a soup for the lightning to hit to create life, or whatever their bullshit story is. But that process starts that way with the star. Now they're saying, no, it's not. The process of neutron stars, which are still formed when a star dies, according to their rhetoric, but just doesn't form any elements anymore. Okay, fine. So it's just blasting out the gaseous light that it was burning and is now run out of, therefore an explosion's in order. And the debris of this neutron star will eventually, by chance, smash into another one, and that will form all of the elements that create life, according to the new story. So say us, because we made it up ourselves. Can I read out some super chats? Shout out to The Price of Adam. He says, "You're going against all of science, and I love it." All of pseudoscience. But yes, I appreciate the sentiment. Also, shout out to Mike. Really appreciate the super chat. "Better to have 100 watching quality content." No, Mike. It would be better if 100,000 were watching. No, I understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate the support. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. But no, I'd much rather there was 500. And if there were 500, I'd still not be satisfied. I'd be much happier if there was 1,000. And if there was 1,000, I'd be moaning that I wasn't outperforming PewDiePie. Let's just be honest about this. But no matter what, my dissatisfaction, regardless of the numbers, is never going to change my elation that you have actually shared the show and we have got to 100, which is your sentiment, Mike. So thank you for the super chat. Right, guys, we're gonna round out this live show. Or we got any further bits and bobs that people want to specifically slap onto the end of the live show?
Well, do maths explode, like they claim?
I didn't understand a word of that. I don't speak Gaelic.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, do maths explode, like they claim? They claim that it's going to be a disaster, and what they're talking about is a mathematical thing. So that would be maths exploding, wouldn't it? Chocolate said yes, so I'll take that as a yes. Chocolate knows. And chocolate.
Okay, to be sure. Anyone else?
What, they don't have exploding math where you come from, Brian? What's good? Falling behind over there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to round out on that note. So with that, I'll say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, and all that good stuff. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panel. Stay tuned if you're watching on an after show, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!